I wanted to make a video about my adventures and advice in mixing your own potting soil for containers and raised beds. In the beginning I started with the square foot gardener recipe, which is 1/3 finished compost, 1/3 peat moss, and 1/3 vermiculite or perlite. And I've gotten good results with it, but over time you start to question whether or not you need all those particular ingredients. I mean, I'm sure some experimentation went into coming up with that recipe, but some of them are pretty expensive, especially if you're filling a big raised bed. So I'm going to talk about those components and some possible substitutions in my current approach, and then I'm going to mix up a batch. I also want to say I don't think there's like a perfect potting soil mix or approach. I mean, plants are growing all over the world in different types of dirt. You know, I think the more important thing is just to plant some things. It's within your budget. You know, something you can do yourself. Do something. It's better than not doing anything. And your local soil might be fine just by itself, or even like a local soil mixed 50% with a bag of garden soil. Might be a good improvement to get you started. So just experiment with what you can. But the other overarching point of this video is that, in my experience, you can get most of the performance of the square foot gardener recipe at way below what it would cost. So the first third in that recipe is finished compost. So if you have a compost pile, that would be free, but otherwise we're pretty much talking about store-bought garden soil like these here. They're all basically composted forest products, so it's like probably shredded bark and small branches and stuff from logging, and then they compost it and add some proprietary fertilizer blend, and so they're pretty much all the same. So I just try to find the cheapest one. This 3 cubic foot bag here is like $12 or $13 nowadays. This was a 2 cubic foot bag, I think about $8, so it's about $4 a cubic foot for this stuff. There's another, Kellogg's makes a 3 cubic foot bundle. It's like a red and white package, usually available at Home Depot. I usually try to combine 2 together just in case one brand has something that the other doesn't. So the other third is peat moss. I have a bundle of it here, which is quite a bit more expensive. This is a 3 cubic foot bundle, and that was like $24, so it's about twice the price of garden soil. I pretty much phased it out of my mixes entirely without too much noticeable difference. Seems like it's a small particle size organic matter that may be a little bit slower to decompose than some other things, but the most obvious substitution right off the bat is just get rid of peat moss and double up on the garden soil or the compost, and that's more or less what I do. But you might be able to get some wood chips for free locally. Haven't done this too much, but seem to be filling the same role as peat moss, being basically undecomposed woody matter. And like this is a 2 cubic foot. This bag was, bark mulch is $7, so that's even cheaper than the potting soil or garden soil mix. And it's going to break down eventually, same as peat moss is basically just basically the former life of composted forest products would be wood chips and stuff, and then kind of an accelerated hugelkultur idea, because that's where you just bury chunks of wood in your garden bed and it'll decompose over time. You can probably go too far on the substitution, so if you just say, okay, I'm going to plant everything in sawdust or something, you're likely to wind up with a mushroom cake or something, because you're missing that mature microbial environment. Shredded paper might be another thing to think about to fill that role in the mix. The last third is the perlite and vermiculite. They're both different types of puffed rock. I haven't bought it in bulk lately, but it seems like it's about $10 to $15 a cubic foot, which makes it the most expensive component. Perlite's slightly cheaper, and I tend to use it a little more lately for that reason. But vermiculite seems like it's a little bit less dusty, which is nice when working with it. Perlite can sometimes kind of float and migrate to the top of the soil and then maybe blow away, which is a little bit of a disadvantage, but not really if you're mulching. Like I said, they're both exploded rock, which is very porous, and they function in the soil to trap air and water. Since they have a lot of surface area, they provide lots of places for microbial activity. Helps to prevent compaction and keep a nice loamy texture. I think it sort of creates little waypoints in the soil for roots to navigate through. And these properties are pretty unique, so I haven't found any good substitutions. Like gravel and sand don't really cut it because they're not porous, and they're going to make your pots really heavy. Maybe some like finely crushed up terracotta might be a reasonable substitution there. So I still use these in my mix, but I think you can capture most of the benefits dialing it back to maybe 15% rather than a third. And that's what I currently do. So that does it basically for those components of the square foot gardener recipe. So if you go down the aisles of your garden store, you're thinking, well, what's the cheapest stuff here that I might be able to substitute in with my potting soil mix? You're going to come across these two. They're about $2 to $3 for a cubic foot. This is steer manure, and it's composted organic material. It's also natural fertilizer, mostly nitrogen, which will help your plants and facilitate the decomposition in the soil. But you don't want to overdo it because you can't have too much nitrogen, and also it's sort of an unknown as to what the steers were eating and what hormones or medication they may have been on. So maybe organic material, but doesn't necessarily mean it was raised organically, if you know what I mean. The other one here is topsoil. This is basically an unspecified mix of organic and inorganic matter with no added fertilizer. It tends to be a little bit clumpy, but I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be part of your mix in moderation. See what do we have here? Peat, processed forest products, compost, ash, rice, hulls, sand, native topsoil, and it's basically a bag of ass. Okay. So when we mix our soil up today, I'm going to use half a bag of this. That'll be 1.5 cubic feet of this composted forest product, and I'm going to use half a bag of this. That'll be 1 cubic foot. I'm going to put in half a bag of steer manure, half a bag of topsoil, and also about a half a cubic foot of perlite vermiculite mix, which is pretty much going to max out the capacity of my mixing cart here, which is pretty much an invaluable tool. The other stuff that I'm going to add in is just kind of a weak all-purpose fertilizer. You want something where the numbers are all the same and not too big. So those are a couple options right there. And I'm going to put in some azomite, which is basically a trace mineral micronutrient product. It comes in a dust and a granules. I use granules here, but I use the dust more often. Okay, so let's mix up a batch. You can't stand around here making videos all day. Okay, so let's get this show on the road, mixing some potting soil. So we're gonna start with half a bag of this composted forest product. Alright. show you a pretty nice trick for, I want half of this battery, right? So, boom. If you want to build a layer cake in this cart, I'm just or the first layer, even it out. What are we doing next? This goes to the layer, so the half line is on the edge of the turnkey. Put some of this my fertilizers and stuff in, so before I forget them. About a cup. Cup and a half. So, alright, let's put the other. This is an 8-quart bag of perlite. This stuff is going to be dusty. Be better to have dust mask on. I'm going to hold my breath. You can also mitigate the dust somewhat by wetting it down while it's still in the bag. Sorry about another 4 parts. We'll make a little left in this bag. Should be good. So trying to break up any clumps and get even layers throughout the card. It's going to help us with our mixing it. Did we forget anything? I don't think so. Take a couple scoops to get a bit of a pile, get down to the bottom. This side. So I'm just going to start turning the whole thing over, and also adding it to this side, breaking up any bigger clumps you see as you go along. Working my way to the other side of the cart. Bigger chunks always like to fall into the bottom of the bean. Just help. Alright, there you go. Now, here we go, this is what it looks like. Pretty nice looking mix, if I say so myself. I'm gonna pot up some of these berry bushes. Until next time, grow food yourself.